guys, Jas out here in Singapore. It is the Night Owl Podcast. Thank you so much for bringing yourselves back here to listen to me once again as I rant and rave about things that are important to mental health. So you guys already know this whole podcast is about documenting things that I see and hear and experience in everyday life, as well as bits and pieces about how I'm building my business and what it is that I'm teaching at the moment and how do I provide for my clientele and help to bring awareness in the community at large. Because the last thing I want is for the stigma that if you go seek help for mental health, that there's something wrong with you. The point is, everybody has something that they have difficulty dealing with, and it should be normal that you go and seek help rather than keep it to yourself and then feel like you need to explode at some point. So here I am. I want to talk to you a little bit about healing yourself, because honestly speaking, if you don't heal yourself, you are prone to actually passing down the pain. Now, I'm not talking about generational curses in this particular episode, but I do want to talk about the fact that once you heal yourself, you tend to change how you behave, how you see the world, how you treat other people, and in so doing, it becomes a ripple effect, so that the people that encounter you, this new version of you, will also feel different about themselves, I hope, right? This is the hope. You can't change anybody else. You can't force anybody to change. We've all tried that shit. It doesn't work. But the point being that if you can find a way to change yourself, the way you see things, the perspective that you deal with life from, that chances are you will affect another person. Hopefully infect another person so that they can see that there is hope to change and that they might be able to enjoy life rather than kind of like be run by the life that they've been given, right? So let me give you a specific example. Me, okay? When I was younger, when I was a little kid and I went to go live with my parents, it was very, very disruptive because I moved from Singapore all the way to London, and it was a situation where I was living with my grandparents and now I was living with my parents. And my grandparents helped ease the transition for a little bit, but they weren't going to live with us forever. They came for like a month or so to make sure we were settled, and they went back to Singapore. And from there, the chaos continued because I only lived in London for about 2 years. Once my dad graduated from his studies at the University of London, he decided he was going to move us to Australia. So we moved to Brisbane. Beautiful, beautiful country, by the way. Really, really enjoyed, had really great, happy memories of living in Brisbane. We lived there for about 4 years before we moved to Adelaide. And in Adelaide, we lived there for about a school year before my dad decided, okay, well, I have a better opportunity in Indonesia. We're going to move to Indonesia. We went to Jakarta. We lived in Jakarta. I went to Jakarta International School for a year before, the summer let out. And they were like, all right, well, do you want to go visit your grandmother and your cousins in the US? And I was like, yeah, sure. Little did we know that was going to be the end of all the moving, because we stayed in the US for about 20 years after that. So all of this to say that the person that I was growing up is definitely not the person I am now. I did everything that I could to try and maintain the fact that I was important in the family. I played protector. I made sure that I took care of my younger brother because I had a little brother at the time, until we got to Adelaide, where I had 2 younger brothers then. And even at that point, I kind of established myself as, I'm going to lead the 2 little ones, and I'm going to end up taking the fall for whatever they do. And I'm going to see if I can't protect them from the world as much as I could, because I was the constant in their life. My mom worked all the time. My dad wasn't always in the country with us. So I was the parent, and I was happy to do that. But what would happen is I would imitate a lot of the things, the behaviors that my mom did when she was, what's the word I want to use? Disciplining me. And I just did what I saw. Monkey see, monkey do, right? And that meant that I would yell at them. I would punish them. I would hit them on occasion. Not cool. Because my mom hit me. That's the way she treated me, and that's the way I treated them. And it was all about maintaining control of them. And a lot of times it was also about, how did the world see me as a person? I was worried about disappointing the world around me. That included my mom, my grandmother, my aunts, my cousins, people who would come in and visit. If it got really bad, my mom would tell my dad, and I'd get in trouble like over the phone or whatever. So I was worried about those things. Moving to so many different schools in my life, I was worried about how the teacher would perceive me and how the school kids would react to me, and would I fit in? Can I get away from being bullied one time? I mean, that was like a constant prayer for me. And trying to fly under the radar so that no one would find fault, no one would criticize or condemn me, no one would judge me, and then I wouldn't get in trouble as a result. So all of that, I was worried about how everybody was watching how everybody perceived me, what they thought of me. It was all about what other people's perceptions of me looked like and how can I make sure it was as good as possible. I just needed to be the goody two shoes. I needed to fly under the radar because I was tired of getting in trouble, because I was getting in trouble all the time at home. Fast forward a bunch of years, and here I am, mother of my own child, and I remember thinking, oh my God, I had no idea what it was like to have another life, like completely dependent on me. Yes, I'm the oldest child and the other two kids were there and they depended on me to a degree, but I wasn't providing money and food and rent and shelter. Like I wasn't doing all of that. So it was a different level of responsibility that I had to step into. And at that point, by then, I had learned enough about myself that I was no longer worried about what everyone else wanted from me and what everyone else expected from me, because what I had learned was trying to please all of them, I was contradicting myself constantly, because one group of people would want this and the other group of people would want something completely opposite. And in order for me to work between the two, I had to be both. How do you be both? I know about duality, but holy cow, like that's too much. Anyway, I got to a place after my divorce, actually, where I'd healed myself, where I suddenly felt like, you know what? Instinctively, I know how to take care of my child. I've proven that to myself, because when I went into labor, had the baby, came back home, it was earlier than was expected, so my mom didn't get there right away. I had to wing it by myself, because my husband went to work, my kids were off at school, and I had to wing it. I had to figure out how to sit there and stare at the baby like, oh my God, I'm going to screw this up royally. I was so terrified. But anyway, eventually left my husband, came home with a toddler. I flew halfway around the world with a toddler to restart my life all over again. And what I found was I was still very bitter, very angry, and it took a little bit of doing, but I ended up healing myself to the point where I had forgiven myself for the choices that I had made, forgiven myself for the things that I had to do in order to leave, because that meant I had to leave two other kids behind. I didn't actually tell him goodbye when I left because I was afraid he'd stop me or try and take my kid away from me. And I had to do what I had to do, right? Get back here to Singapore, and it took me a while to come out of my room and not be so depressed. But eventually what ended up happening was I forged a path for myself. Again, I went through the whole, well, my aunts want me to get a maid, and my uncles are telling me that, I can't depend on my mom, and it's not fair to depend on my mom for her to raise my kid, and da-da-da-da. So I was listening to everybody else, and eventually I found a middle path for me. I found that the maid situation, not a good fit for me. And depending on my mom, also not a good fit for me, because she was at the beck and call of my dad. So whenever my dad said, go fly here and be there for a while, I had to be ready to, to pick up the pieces and start my life over without my mom. And when she came back home, I had to pick up the pieces and make room and start over with my mom. Like it would be like that on and off all the time. And eventually what I learned was, once I healed how I saw myself, and once I healed the idea that I was completely capable of raising a child on my own without any input if need be, I stopped worrying about how everyone else saw me as a mom, and I started worrying about how my daughter saw me. The last thing I wanted was to repeat the mistakes that I did when I was raising my brothers, and be that, the hand of God and the cane that was the discipline rod. I don't know what to call it, but the point is, I wasn't trying to strike fear in the hearts of my child. I wanted to make sure that she understood where I was coming from, that I had her best intentions at heart, and that this was going to be a journey that we walked together, because she has to help me understand who she is, and I need to help her understand who I am. And between those two personalities, we need to find a way that we can communicate well enough to get what we need to get done. So there is a point in your life where you will stop worrying what everyone else wants of you. You will find that you are basically being drawn and quartered by all the different factions in your life that want something from you, that expect something from you. You should be like this if you're, a female, and you should be like that if you're married, and you should be like this if you're single. This is not the way to behave, and this is not respect, like all of that shit. Okay? Once you can put all that aside, and you can look at yourself in the mirror and find that, okay, decision by decision, you're finding more and more ways not to disappoint yourself. You're finding more and more ways to find excuses to make yourself happy, to find excuses for you to laugh and maybe dance, and to have some freedom in your life where you have a choice that you get to make all by yourself, that no one has any input in. Your life becomes lighter. It becomes more your life. It becomes more fun to live. And in those moments, you realize that, you know what? This is what living life really means. When you can find a way to be your own person without the expectations and the weight of, cultural conditioning sitting on top of your head, it becomes a different ball game entirely. The rules change. Suddenly you make the rules and you decide who gets a piece of, time with you when you're spending time with them, and who gets to watch from the outside and hear the news from somebody else, a third party passerby or whatever. For me as a parent, it really became all about, all right, this bubble between me and my daughter, and how does she see me? Does she see me as someone she should be afraid of? Because that's not what I want. Does she see me as someone that she can push over? That's not what I want either. Does she see me as her best friend? Kinda, but she needs to remember that I'm also her parent, and push come to shove, I'm going to take parent first before I'm her best friend. So it was a lot of little things, but it became all about this little life that God has placed in my hands for me to take care of. And for the short while that I have her, I need to know that I can teach her what I know about the world and prepare her for a life without me in it. Because at the end of the day, that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to pass on the knowledge that we have. It's been storytelling for generations and generations, from, cave wall paintings all the way down to written books and video blogs and all kinds of stuff, right? The point is, as a parent, my job is to teach you how to move about in the world and find your own path and not be bogged down by everybody's expectations. And yeah, you're going to go through that phase as well, where you have to, where you feel like you have no other choice but to people please. But ultimately, as long as I focus on you and I focus on doing right by you as best I can every day, and trust me, there will be plenty of days where you fail, you just forgive yourself and keep on going. You keep on trying. It becomes more authentic a relationship. It becomes the most honest relationship you'll ever have. And my wish is that all of your relationships, when it comes down to the person you see on the bus every day because y'all have the same commute, the people you work with, your schoolmates, your friends that you've had forever, your parents, your aunts, your uncles, the temple community, whoever you have an ongoing relationship with, if you can find a way to be as authentic as possible in front of them, I guarantee you'll find quality in your life and you'll find peace in your life. No more restrictions as such, but respect and acceptance and true peace. And that is my only hope for all of you. So if you have any questions, concerns, please drop them in the comments below. If you want to get in touch with me, please DM me, send me a message, because I do check all of my messages, like all of the social media places. And I'm looking forward to telling you how you can find peace in your own life if you want to have a specific answer instead of a generic one. But until then, you have my podcast, you have my posts, you have blogs eventually. You can get what you can from there. And if you have questions, you know how to reach me. I love you guys. Catch you later. Bye.